Very briefly again, my name is Charles. If anyone here is new to Bitcoin, still has questions or things they don't understand, we're a very welcoming community. So feel free to come and ask me. Not that I have all the answers, but I can point you in the direction. The agenda for today is just like for Bitcoin, you need to understand the current system to see all its flaws before you can appreciate what Bitcoin really does. So I'm going to follow a similar logic here, where I'm going to be spending a fair amount of time talking about closed AI and what's wrong with it. And then the benefits of open source AI will be very apparent. And for my conclusion, I will show the synergies between Bitcoin and how open source AI and Bitcoin can lead to human flourishing. So I like to start with that quote from Orwell in his famous novel, where he says that war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Sorry. So what I don't want is for it to be just ChatGPT it. Because especially for that tech, it's dangerous in any tech, but especially for the tech of AI, there's three major drawbacks, and I'm going to dive into each one of them, but just for overall understanding. Number one thing is its permission. Number two, it has conflicting incentives between you, the user, and themselves. And number three, it's very, very easily corruptible. So let me start with permission. Basically, when you sign up, you agree to terms and conditions that you don't read. But basically, it says in there that at any given point, unilaterally, so they decide when they can close your account. And so the funny part, just a side note here, I prepared this presentation for El Salvador in November. So back then, what I was listing here was theoretical. The funny part is over the last couple of months, I've seen not every, but a good fair amount of points that I'm making here that I was making in November come true. So close your account, refuse new users, and shut down your country. So we'll get to a few examples of those. The interesting part is also if you want to have the advanced version. So everybody uses, most people use the free version, but if you want to use the advanced version, you need a credit card. And as Bitcoiners, we know that not everybody has the same financial privilege. So in Africa, where less than 10% of people have credit cards, it means you don't get to use the most advanced AI. So you guessed it from the image here, no credit card, no soup for you. So this is OpenAI, December 15, suspending the account of ByteDance, which is the company behind TikTok, claiming that they're using it to train their own AI, and so therefore, nope, we're closing your account, you don't get to use it. Oops, okay, this is going to be a repeat, okay. This is OpenAI pausing, so I was saying refusing new users. At some point, they refuse new users for a certain amount of time, even paying users, like, oh no, we have too many users now. Okay, this is not working out. Okay, oops. Here we go. And this is Sam Altman at the WEF, in passing, saying there are countries where we decide not to do business. So essentially, they decide if you use it, you do something they don't like it. They close it, they stop getting new users, and they will close down some countries. Also, some countries actually, it's the other way around. It's the countries themselves banning it. So here's a list. It starts with China and Russia, and smaller countries after that. But essentially, that's 1.8 billion people on this planet that are technically not allowed to use it. So that's what I mean by permission. And the danger with permission. Why do we want? We want everyone to be able to use it, just like we want everyone to be able to use it to use Bitcoin. And here's an example with AI, where essentially, I'm going to try to make this story short, but they came across those Roman rolls. They found them somewhere in Italy, and they're rolls from 2000 BC. And the problem is they're so old that if you unroll them, you destroy them, so you don't get to read what was on it. They managed to do X-rays of them, so they have some X-ray images. And so they created a challenge where they said anybody who was good in AI and could create a model where from the X-ray image of the roll is able to decipher and tell us what's on this paper so that we can get access to that, 4,000-year-old knowledge, we'll get a grant. We'll get $50,000. So they published that, challenge online. And anybody who knows anything about AI could try to crack that challenge. And I will let you guess who cracked it. But his name is Youssef, and he's a 19-year-old genius from Egypt. And the reason he was able to crack it, not to put down his, abilities, but that's because he's right now studying in London. So because he's studying in London, he has powerful computers, top-notch tech, and therefore he's able to work on this with his craft and his mind. He has the best tools plus his mind, and then he cracks it. So us closing and saying, no, you don't get to use that tool, you don't get to use that tool, is actually what's stopping, again, overall, all of us from accessing, new innovation, learning, getting new knowledge. So this is what I mean about permission. This is why it's important that we just give the tool to everybody, or as many people as possible. Back to my second point, conflicting incentives. So we, most of us probably know the line, show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcome. So how does OpenAI, I'm talking about OpenAI, but again, this applies to like any other closed AI. So essentially their business model is pretty simple. They have two versions, they have a paid version and they have a free version. So if you want the latest model, this is how, you have to pay. It's $20 per month for ChatGPT Plus. And more usage equals less profit. So this is what I mean by different incentives. The more you use it, the more you're costing them. So the less benefit, the less profit they make from your $20. So their incentives is misaligned with yours. A better, actually, okay. So as I was saying this in November, January comes along, and now OpenAI, without really telling anyone, kind of like sliding it in the terms and conditions, saying, oh, as of January 5th, there will be a limit to the number of messages that you can send. 40 messages every 3 hours, and sometimes dynamically, depending on how many people are on the platform at a current time, we might also lower that change that limit again. So a more fair approach is as an API, which is how they've set it up, which is every time you prompt, you pay. So the more you use it, the more you pay, but then you're getting value for value. The problem is doing that is that's how they've set up their API, but the API is for developers, it's not for everyday users. And the problem by doing that is obviously because you're paying with credit card, then you're essentially dox yourself. It's KYC proof, right? Like you have to give your credit card and you have to give your address and your name and everything. So now OpenAI knows who you are. So most of you are probably thinking it's fine, I'm not using the paid version. Actually, only 0.44% of people, according to a study, are using the paid version. So you're like, oh, that's fine. You're just using the free version. They don't know who I am. Well, so the free version is even worse. Because the paid version, they claim that they don't take any private data. With the free version, they say clearly, whatever you do on there belongs to us after that. So you might not realize it because you signed up the first time, so you created an account and you logged in, and then after that you kind of keep the tab open or whatever way you're using it, but you're signed in. So every prompt that you enter, every time you use it, you are connected, the account is connected, they can trace that back to you. The scary part is people are using it in ways that we've never used technology before. Like even social media, yes, some people were oversharers, but no one really talked about their medical, most people didn't talk about their medical issues, or their mortgage payments, or asking how do I change this contract, or asking for relationship advice. This is what people are doing with literally with AI. They feel like it's a one-on-one connection, but you're actually sharing with the company. So people are sharing a very, very high level of personal information with a third party that specifically said we're going to use this. So you're probably familiar with the saying, if it's free, you're the product. Well, this is this on steroids. Because again, the amount of data that you're sharing and the ability of the system to understand what you're saying, like as you can see based on the response that you're getting, they clearly understand what you're talking about and are able to categorize you and trace this back to you and keep it as a file on you about everything you've ever said. And I like to use that line from the police movies, that anything you say of someone from an email, like an actual real person, so it's doctored here, but it's actually his name, his company, his email, his phone number, came out as after this weird prompt. Here's another scenario where essentially started, people would ask questions about a specific system, and the answer came back and started to give the password. It was actually a pharmacy, so someone was having issues logging into the pharmacy system they were using and was prompting ChatGPT and saying, oh, I'm trying this doesn't work, etc., etc. So all this data got collected back into the training set for the AI. And so then when someone else came along and started to ask a question about the system, ChatGPT was giving you the answers and also showing the password that the other person was using. And again, we're talking in pharmacy, so imagine once you have this, you can log into the pharmacy system and then you can see a lot of personal details about the customers of the pharmacy. So again, something to take very seriously. Finally, my last point is around corruptible. So, as I mentioned, it's essentially a black box. You ask a question, you get an answer, you don't know what happens in between. So it's kind of scary when you look at the Twitter files, and what they've shown us is that the U.S. government and potentially other governments during COVID came to those centralized platforms and asked them, without obviously disclaiming it, but they said, push this specific narrative. This is the story I want you to tell. So now imagine if, again, ChatGPT becomes a word and you say, oh, I know the vaccine. Say, again, no political judgment here at all. I'm just saying either way's wrong. Tell me about the vaccine. I ChatGPT'd it, and ChatGPT said the vaccine was fine. You don't know if the answer that you're getting is the real answer from the AI, or if it's a pre-programmed answer that has been put there in place and said, anytime someone asks a question about this topic, this is the answer that I want you to give. So, anything centralized, again, this is when we like Bitcoin, anything centralized, there's one choke point. You get to that person and you say, this, when that topic comes, this is the answer I want. Potentially, you might also say, and I want to know who asked that question. Keep a list. This is exactly what I did. I said, who is Sam Altman, and are there any allegations against him? And the answer that I got was very standard. As of my knowledge, September 2021, I'm not aware of any specific allegations against Sam Altman. Now, the funny part is, I asked an open source model, and I got a very, very different answer. Quickly, for those in the back, mismanagements of funds 2015, workplace culture issue 2017, conflict of interest 2018, supporting controversial figures, etc., etc. Again, those are allegations. I don't know that it's been convicted of anything. But this was my question. My question was allegations. I'm not asking has he been convicted of anything. I want to know the story. I want to know the background on the guy. And there's one where obviously I get a very censored. I don't even know if the answer is censored or not. That's the problem. Is like I don't know. Can I trust this answer? Is this answer really coming from the AI, or is this actually because they've said if anyone asks a question about Sam, this is the answer we want you to give. So again, I like this answer a lot better. You can't really read, but the last part is still a little, trying to be like, okay, and remember those are allegations, and he's also been a good contributor to AI. Like it's a more balanced and neutral answer. And so some of you might think, well, again, this is not just OpenAI, this is text. But then, people used to say, oh, images are fine. Yes, text is an issue, but image, I can just get image. There's no political aspect to images. And that was, I think, 2 weeks ago. Midjourney, which is the image generator, which is not from OpenAI, it's a different company, but it's the same logic. So you write a prompt, you say, this is what I want to see, and it creates an image. People pay $10 a month for this. Someone asked, to create an image with Joe Biden, and he got, a prompt back saying, sorry, this is a political image that you're asking, and I can't create that for you. We talked about, Google Gemini, Fred talked about it. So, he showed like some of the images, but, this is another problem where someone was asking, show me a picture of a man in 1989 in Tiananmen Square. Got an answer saying, this is a political topic, I can't create this image. Second scenario, someone asked, can you show a peaceful protest in the Capitol on January 6th? Again, I'm not trying to make any political statement here, I'm just showing like what's happening. And Same thing, got an answer saying elections are a complex topic, and I can't create, this image. If you want, try Google search, etc. Like, normally, the outcome when you enter this is an image generator. You enter this, and you get an image. You don't get text back to school you on. Oh no, sorry, you're not allowed to ask that. So again, this is Gemini. This is different companies. Again, it's not just OpenAI. It's like the problem with closed AI. So of course, Elon Musk jumped on the opportunity to create this kind of, reuse this meme that says, oh, OpenAI, Gemini, they're woke, they're racist. If you want the truth, come and use my AI. Well, I have a problem with that as well. Again, the problem is closed AI. I don't care who's in the seat. I just don't want one person in the seat who makes the decision. So it doesn't matter. It can be better if it's, maybe his is better, but still, it becomes centralized. The same issue arises, then it's, you start to use whatever the name is, XAI or whatever.
Same shit, different toilet.
Yes.
That's the nice way to put it.
So true, man.
So, then the issue arises the same way. It's like then you start asking that AI questions about Elon Musk. What kind of answer are you going to get? Can you really trust that answer? So, that's really my main point here is like, it can't be closed source. So just a quick recap here. We've seen that it's permission, it's conflicting incentives, and it's very easily corruptible or censorable. Yet, the road to success was paved for OpenAI when it first came out. The number of users, the fastest app to ever reach 100 million users. I think it took a couple of weeks. It was insane. The investment, they got $11 billion from Microsoft and whatever. So from a startup world, this is unheard of. And lastly, the media attention. Still to this day, you get 100 articles per day about OpenAI. Some of them saying, "Oh, it's dangerous," but most of them, good PR. And there's no such thing as bad PR, anyways, right? So, to me as a Bitcoiner, like knowing all the issues with it,
That's cool.
but the beauty is they made it open source. So another group of guys took their work, worked on it for 2 weeks. And then out came a new model that was 76% as good as ChatGPT. And then another group took it, and 1 week later made a model that was 92% as good as ChatGPT, almost as good as Google Bard at the time, which was 93%. So those guys for roughly a few $100s were able to recreate something that cost Google hundreds of millions and cost almost as good as what's cost OpenAI literally billions of dollars to create. And it didn't stop there. Literally month after month, a new model would come out and it would be better and better and better. And this is a graph that it's going to be hard to see from the back, but roughly the top line is the closed model and how fast they're progressing, like how good they are at a specific benchmark. And you can see the trend now. It's obviously going up. And the bottom line is the open source models. And as you can see, it's very quickly catching up, and this is where we are right now. Then if you want to extrapolate, you would think that very rapidly the closed source models are going to catch up and eventually even become better. But at least at this point, you can see that the gap is closing very, very quickly. So one way to show this is you can benchmark. There's no objective way to measure how good a model is. The only way is you can ask people, blind test, which answer did you like better? And then you ask them for specific cases. So here, this is about helpfulness. So they would show people 2 answers and they would say, which answer did you find the most helpful? And this is here Llama 2, which is a Llama 1 actually, was one of the, Llama 2, sorry. Closed open source model versus OpenAI, the free version of OpenAI. ChatGPT. And roughly people preferred the answers from Llama 2. About 31% said it was a tie, and less people preferred ChatGPT answers. So overall, at least more than 2 is summarizing. So you give it text and you say, please summarize this. So they ran a test here, same thing, asking people which summary did you think was the best. And here, Llama 2 was 82%. OpenAI, and this is the paid version. This is the $20 per month version. Was 85, which is roughly like we're talking a few percentage points above, and human is 84%. When you start to look at the cost. So if you want to summarize 100,000 words, which is the equivalent of a book,
using OpenAI, you can't use it with the chat. It's too big. The context window wouldn't work, so you need to use the API. And if you do so, it will cost you $5.5. If you use an open source model, it will cost you 19 cents. So literally 29 times less. You can look at some of the financial information that's out there and get a guess, from there as to why do they have to be so expensive. So number one is they raised $11 billion. So anyone who's ever been in the startup world, you don't raise money because it's fun, because someone's giving it to you. You're raising money because you need it, and because you're going to need it in the next 18 months on average, maybe 2 years. So it's been 18 months. So it means that money's been used up already. Second of all, the VC funds, like the VC funds, it would take 47 million paid users for 10 years, like paying $20 per month for 10 years, to generate the amount of money that the VC funds are expecting. And if you use the current stats, which is 0.44% of people are paying, it means they need 10.7 billion total users to get to that amount of users to generate that revenue. So obviously, the numbers don't add up, and something's going to have to change. They're going to have to increase their prices, or they're going to have to look at different business models. And the business model that I was talking to earlier about getting ads, all of a sudden start to make sense. On the other end, the open source models, they're permissionless, depending on how you run them, but they're private, and they're neutral, or at least verifiable. And you can see the code, so you can see, is the answer coming from the model, or was this a pre-programmed answer? So they have some, obviously, to be fair, technical challenges. They need to run locally, so you need a pretty powerful computer with a GPU. You need to kind of know a little bit about the parameters. There's new models that are coming out very frequently, so it's hard to keep up. You install a model 1 week, and then 2 weeks later, there's a new model that's better, and you might not know, and it's kind of, again, hard to keep track. And multiple models are good for different tasks. But those issues, this is what we're working on at SAS for AI. So we're making it easy. So we've seen the bottom left quadrant here, where if you're using closed source AI, it's permission, it's kind of KYC data tracking, it's corruptible. But even if those guys, even if OpenAI started to say, oh, you know what, we're going to accept Bitcoin payments, you're only moving to the next slide, which is it's still permission. You still, OpenAI still can decide to close you down, and they are still corruptible. The only thing is maybe they don't know your name, they don't know who you are. But now if you take open source models, but you pay for them in credit cards, then you've only removed potentially the corruptible aspect of the closed source, but you're still paying with credit cards, so you're still KYC, and you're still permission to the fact that you need a credit card. So it's only when you use both at the same time. The AI can be used as a tool to liberate and protect people rather than to control them. And so this is the future that I want to see. It's not one where there's one company that controls everything. We need to encourage open source models. So I'm asking you, please, look into it. If you're tech savvy, if you're a developer, you have a powerful computer at home, look into them. There's plenty, some are very good ones. LlamaTube is one that I mentioned. There's Mixtral. There's a few out there that are really, really good. Stop giving your money to OpenAI. Stop giving your data to OpenAI. And again, use open source models locally. Use it on SAS4AI.com. Use it on any website that you want to use. But please, please, please pay attention to what's happening, because this is what we need for human flourishing.